In this video, we will go over early life on Earth and the origin of life. So we will be learning about early life on Earth, the Miller-Urey Experiment, radiometric dating, and phylogenies. This topic is really interesting because it gives us an insight as to who we are, where we came from, and how this all started.
So the first couple things you should know is that the conditions of early Earth were pretty much inhabitable for human beings. First off, there was a lot of lightning, volcanic activity, UV radiation. It was a harsh place to live. And the atmosphere had hydrogen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, water, and so much more. But the key thing here is that there was no oxygen, which means that human beings would not have been able to breathe or survive back then. And the vapor in the air eventually condensed into the oceans. And I think when we talk about early Earth and the origin of life, the big question that comes up is, when did it all start? When did life begin? Well, fossil evidence suggests that life originated about 3.5 billion years ago. That's a lot of zeros. And to clarify, simpler life, life before photosynthesis, is hypothesized to have occurred approximately 3.9 billion years ago. So the answer is a long time ago, where Earth looked very, very different. In fact, the Miller-Urey experiment was an attempt to recreate the Earth's early atmosphere. And they did it through a variety of ways. They heated up water right here. As you can see, this is your heat source. They have the water, and to stimulate, they had the water, they needed lightning. So to do that, they did electrodes discharging sparks, and let me move this image a little bit so you can see it better. And they added a lot of little features here to stimulate what early Earth looked like. And the finding of this is that they identified a variety of organic molecules being formed even in this setup. And this proves that the abiotic synthesis, which we'll talk about more in just a minute. And this study had found that amino acids had been formed under the conditions, stimulating a volcanic eruption, essentially. And what this means is that abiotic synthesis, which we will talk about in just a bit, was possible under these conditions. Under these conditions. So, there are four key things in order for life to arise. The first part is the abiotic synthesis of small organic molecules. Synthesis means to bring together, combine. So what this means is that abiotic means not alive. So an example of this is amino acids. Then the second step is that these molecules need to be joined into polymers. Polymers are, we talked about this before, monomers are the beads, like your little letter beads, your little letter beads, like C, A, T, if I have this. The monomers are your little letters, and then a polymer is the whole word. Then there's the packaging of polymers into protocells, which means that they maintained an internal chemistry different from that of their surroundings. And finally, it is the origin of self-replicating molecules, inheritance. And the primary model we've talked about in biology so far is DNA. So you need to know these four things, I would highly recommend writing them down. And yeah. The next thing we're talking about today is radiometric dating. And radiometric dating is a way to kind of figure out how long ago an organism lived. And this is done through the decay of radioactive isotopes. And it can help to look at this diagram here. So as you can see, over time, these isotopes are decaying, and we can compare the radioactive and non-radioactive isotopes to determine roughly the rock's age. And this is done because the fossils have isotopes, and they have carbon-14. And an important thing for you to know is that half-life is 5,730 years. I would highly recommend also doing some problems involving half-life. And then we get to phylogeny. So a phylogeny establishes the evolutionary history of a species, and this is done from fossils, morphological and molecular homologies among organisms. And this is eventually made into a phylogenetic tree like the one here, where each organism has a certain traits and is given its own branch. Again, similar to radiometric dating, highly recommend doing some problems with analyzing the trees a little bit better. But that should give you all you need to know about early Earth and the origin of life. Thank you.